everyone, and welcome to Soul Stained Ink. My name is Beth, and I am here to do a very quick catch up slash reviews on my grad school reads. I'm going to start with my medieval to modern fantasy class, then go through to my British comic novels class, and then I'm going to tell you what we've read in my Black Lives Matter movement mixtape American Lit course. But I don't think I'm going to do reviews for those per se. Um, I'm not the person to talk about that. I'm very much out of my depth in that class, although I am learning a lot. So I'm just going to kind of tell you in just a few words for each book my feelings and move right along. So for my medieval to modern fantasy course, we the last one I talked to you about was Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So then we read some selections from Christian de Troyes' Percival, which is another chivalric tale about this boy who finds out that his father and brothers were knights, and he decides he's going to go be a knight, and he kind of learns as he goes from various people, and he of course is amazing at it right away, defeats this red knight that nobody else in King Arthur's court could defeat, falls in love with a beautiful maiden, rescues a couple of people, all those good things. It's not my favorite of the chivalric tales. I am a big fan of Malory's Le Mort d'Arthur, which we read next, but Percival was not terrible. I had never read this before and was keen on it, so I read the whole thing. I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then we got to read selections from Malory's Le Mort d'Arthur. And even though my analysis paper was apparently all over the place and she asked me if I had actually read the book, this was my 5th or 6th time reading it. We've just got a lot going on. I'm a bit overwhelmed taking 3 classes plus teaching plus dealing with the girls, driving back and forth 4 nights a week because of the little one's daycare, into the 6 weeks, COVID teaching, all that stuff. But I have read that book. Like, this is my 6th time, 5th or 6th time, like I said. Love it a lot. If you like Arthurian tales, this is the first set of compilations for those. And if you know any Arthurian tales, it's probably because Malory put them together in the format that he did. Of course, I gave it a 5-star, well, like a 4.5 star. It's fabulous. Moving on, we did like 3 weeks of Malory. So then this past week, we read from Spencer's The Fairy Queen. We read book 3, Britomort, The Night of Chastity, which I had completely forgotten about. I've read the entire Fairy Queen book, but I read it in one of my college classes, one of my undergrads, and that was a good 16, 17 years ago. So I had forgotten a lot about it, and it was fun to revisit that. I give it about a 3.5 to 4 stars. This book's all about Britomart, who is a female who sees in the magic mirror this amazing, handsome, chivalric knight, and she, immediately falls in love. And then she steals some knight's armor and goes off into the real world in order to find her true love. But she is a very chaste knight, and she's also amazing at being a knight. She beats a lot of people up. It's a lot of fun. It reminds me of kind of the original stories of Mulan, or pretty much any Disney princess that just goes out and does her thing, and then she's like, oh, look, you're a prince, except for Ariel, of course. But All right, this week we are reading the Countess of Pembroke's version of Sidney's Arcadia, and I really don't have much to say about that. I've only just started it, but I'm not enjoying it as much as I was hoping that I would. All right, let's move on to my British comic novel course. I talked to you about, I don't know if I talked to you about Vile Bodies or not. Vile Bodies is by Evelyn Waugh, and it is, of course, satirical. Most British comic novels are highly satirical. And basically it's making fun of the Bright Young Things, which was Britain's version of um, America's flapper set, basically. So think F. Scott Fitzgerald and Zelda and all of their buddies. That's them, but the British version. And I don't want to spoil anything, and saying basically anything is going to spoil it because I can't think of a good way to tell you anything else about it. But it follows these characters as they try to pursue whatever they think that they need to be happy. It doesn't work. There you go. I didn't enjoy it as much, gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book we read was Lucky Gem, I think. Yeah, Lucky Gem by Kingsley Amis. I actually really enjoyed this book. It is an academia book. It's about Jim, who is, James is, he's a professor. He's kind of an underling associate professor, and he isn't particularly certain that he wants to do what he's doing. In when he was in school getting his degree, it was kind of easier to go with a focus on medieval England. That was kind of the flop courses. So he did. And now he's teaching courses on and researching on things he doesn't really care about. He doesn't particularly like his boss. He really doesn't like his girlfriend. He's not even 100% sure how she manipulated him into being with him. And it's hilarious. He goes through the entire novel describing the things he would like to say to people and the ways he would like hurt them, like how he's imagining he'd take his boss and his weird shoes and just stick him feet first into the toilet and keep pulling the string. He explains the faces he makes, and it is hilarious. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Obviously enjoyed it. Next was George MacDonald's Fraser Flashman at the Charge. I DNF'd the book and I'm not proud of it. It is for a grad course. I did make it far enough through that I gave it a star rating on Goodreads. I gave it 3 stars. It's more like a 2.5. I didn't enjoy the writing style and the voice in this, but I think part of the problem was that this is like the 5th or 6th book in a series. And while with Wodehouse, it didn't really matter. The first book we read was like the 6th book in the series. For Jeeves, it didn't particularly matter. But I don't think it would have mattered in this one either, except that the way he reminded us about things that we should already know was just annoying to me. So I got about 3/4 of the way through and just could not force myself to finish it in the time I had left, and opted to not do the analysis that week because we have to do 7, or no, we have to do 5 and there are 7 books. So I chose not to do an analysis on that one and just joined in the discussion, and that was it. But then the following week we had discussions in No Book to Read, which was awesome. And this week we read The Rachel Papers by Martin Amis. And they are vulgar, they are disgusting, and they're flippin' awesome. I really enjoyed it. I gave it about a 3.5 or 4 stars. I know that's terrible. There are 2 women in my class that were like, I was a virgin when I got married, and I don't watch anything that's rated over a PG unless my husband just really talks me into it. And this offended me and made me want to puke. And then another woman was like, I am morally offended, and you shouldn't have this in your class, and what are you doing? And of course, the professor was like, you're in grad school, you're both grown women married with kids and teachers. If this is vulgar to you, maybe you shouldn't be in courses like this. We're not, maybe you should step back and think about what it is you're wanting to do, because y'all teach high school. But the whole thing is about this 19-year-old in the 3 months leading up to his 20th birthday. And he talks about like women he dated and his best friend who's a hippie, and everybody's drunk and on drugs, and there's abuse and there's sex. And it's crazy, and it is vulgar, but it's also funny. He's very cerebral, very disconnected from his emotions. And there are times when he'll say things like, I think that feels like it should be. And then he'll give an emotion. Like, I think that I might feel like he has to overthink it before he can decide on his emotion. In fact, I'm writing an analysis over that as soon as I get done talking to you. And that is what I'm writing about, how he's so disconnected from everything, which is partially because he was a sickly child, and partially because his family screwed up, and partially because he's a 19-year-old boy. Have you met some of them? They're crazy. But anyway, and then the last book we're reading for British comic novels before we focus on our final project for the last few weeks is Bridget Jones's Diary, which I have already read. I listened to it. That one's by Helen Fielding, by the way. I listened to it on audiobook because I've watched the movie a dozen times. I love the movie, and I was like, oh yeah. So I've already finished that one. The analysis isn't due for another week, and I've started it. And then I went, oh no, I have to do the analysis for Rachel paper, so now I'm late on it. But whatever. Time is a fluid thing, right? Anyway, I loved Bridget Jones's Diary. If you enjoy the movie and have not read the book, you should. If you have not seen the movie or read the book, you should read the book. There are a lot of things that are changed between the movie and the book, as per usual, but I really did enjoy it and gave it, I think, 4.5 stars. So, yeah, it's awesome. And then let's get to my American Lit course, or the actual title is Black Lives Matter Movement Mixtape. I believe I spoke to you about Notes of a Native Son. We read The Fire Next Time, which is a series of articles and essays by James Baldwin. We read a few of those. I read all of them, but we only had to read a couple for class. And I enjoyed them, but they also really disturbed me on a deep level. So I think I gave it a 4 stars, 3.5, something like that. But these are essays from, 40 years ago, I think. And the fact that A, a lot of the issues he talks about are recurring issues today, and B, some of the things he talks about were so bad that even though I knew they happened, the way he spoke about them made me feel physically ill. We also, I'm not even going to finish that. Just you feel where I'm coming from. We also read Dutchman by Amiri Baraka, which is a play, and it's about this white woman on a bus who approaches black men and like gets them sexually aroused and tries to copulate with them and then murders them. And I don't know. It was just all sorts of messed up, and about a 2.5, 3 stars from me. I would never have finished it if it wasn't for class. Did not enjoy that discussion. We also read Shadow in the Act and Going to Meet the Man. Shadow in the Act is by Ralph Ellison. Going to Meet the Man is by James Baldwin. And we read those together. They're a series of short stories and articles. And again, they're 40 or 50 years old at this point. But the issues they're talking about are recurring issues. They're drugs and music and sex and slaves and just things that are incredibly disturbing and should be to everyone. I believe I gave them both 4 stars. We then read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which is another incredibly disturbing but incredibly beautiful book. I'd never read a Toni Morrison book before, and I will definitely be picking up more of her work. I watched some interviews with her on YouTube, and she wrote this book for her because it was a story she had, and she didn't think it was going to get published, and then it wound up being what it is today. I gave that a 4 star. Then Meridian by Alice Walker, which is crazy and beautiful and amazing and scary, and I gave it a 4 star. It is about a woman named Meridian who dropped out of school because she got pregnant, she got married, her husband left her, and she got into the civil rights movement. Yeah. And then this week we're reading In Search of Our Mother's Gardens by Alice Walker, and Playing in the Dark, Whiteness and the Literary Imaginations by Toni Morrison. Playing in the Dark, I think, is probably my new favorite nonfiction book. She talks about literary whiteness and how authors all try to kind of merge into the universal voice, which at this point is the white voice. I gave that a 4.5 out of 5 stars. In Search of Our Mother's Gardens by Alice Walker. Alice Walker has a very distinctive writing style, which I enjoyed in Meridian, and in her essays, I'm finding it hard to grip because they're much shorter, and that's on me. Next, we will be reading Citizen, an American Lyric by Claudia Rankine, and The Fire This Time, which is edited by Jessamine Ward and has been very booktube popular lately. And then we are also going to be reading Letter to My Son by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The Fire Next Time and Letter to My Son are books I've been meaning to read and have not gotten around to over the last few years. So I'm very much looking forward to getting those done. I don't know much about Citizen and American Lyric. And then we have papers that we're writing about topics having to do with Black authors in America. So I am reading some for that as well. But those are the things that I have read over the last several weeks for all 3 of my grad courses. I know this video is a little longer. If you made it this far, thank you so, so much. I am now caught up, and the next few grad course reviews should be much shorter. I thank you all. I hope you are having a wonderful week. Stay safe. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.